Boy, it seems like this is becoming my regular platform, uh, more so than the previous platform in the studio. I wanted to just jump on for a minute because something really, really important is taking place in America right now. The conversation is raging, and as always, I always feel a sense of obligation to help African Americans, help Black folks frame our arguments, because so often, because we are so pat in our answers, and because, at the end of the day, most uh, civil rights leaders just keep running the same old playbook. I mean, over and over and over again. And so it's because it's so unimaginative, and because it also is dated, and it doesn't ever take into account changes in society. It doesn't ever take into account the advancements of African Americans. Just realistically acknowledging that we are not in the same place that we were, say, for example, in 1983 when I started uh, in this work. And certainly we're not the same place we were in 1963. But you would think for them to admit that would be giving up, I guess, I don't know. Because to me, just because you've made advancements uh, in 40 years or 50 years, it doesn't mean that you're still not justified in struggling and advancing your people's rights and protecting your people. I mean, Jewish Americans have made tremendous strides of progress in this society in many different fields of endeavor, but that doesn't mean the ADL and the organizations they have and their advocates are not legitimate. It doesn't mean anti-Semitism isn't real. But what we want to do as African Americans is promote the excellence. We want to promote the advances that we've made. And that doesn't cause you to give up the struggle. It doesn't cause you to be delegitimized. It doesn't cause you to, uh, you know, have to go out of business if that's what you do. Civil rights organizations, advocates, uh, it doesn't. But the issue that I wanted to talk about tonight is the issue of voter ID. And this is a raging issue in our country right now because the Republicans, of course, are pushing for voter ID. And, with equal opposition, the Democrats are saying that voter ID should not become the law of the land. And I have to come down on the side of the Democrats in this case. But not for the reasons that they are saying. Not for the reasons they are saying. It's a ridiculous argument to say that people can't get ID. That's ridiculous because in almost every aspect of life, you have to have identification. Even if you're on welfare, you have some form of identification. However, I do disagree, and I am opposed to voter ID. Now, the reason I'm opposed to it is not that people can't get ID. I'm opposed to it because the people should not have to get ID to vote. And I'll tell you why, J5, uh, J15062. I want you to hear me out. Reason with me, okay? Um, the reason why you should not have to get voter ID is because the right to vote is a constitutional right. And the Constitution doesn't enumerate that in order to vote, you have to have ID. So that ends the discussion right there. In terms of the federal government, there would be no way in order to implement voter ID unless you had 2/3 majority of the Congress to approve that measure. And of course, that's not going to happen. You're not amendment. You're not going to have a two-thirds majority of Congress to support that amendment to the Constitution. The Constitution does not say that one has to have ID to vote. That's the only argument that you make to Republicans. None of these piss poor arguments, people don't have access to ID, women would have to change their name. All of that is superfluous. And quite honestly, it's a weak argument. It's a buffoonish argument because those same women get passports to go on their vacations to Mexico, to the Azores, to wherever they want to go. So don't make the woe is me argument. Don't always make the argument that black people are incompetent and different from other people, okay? We can absolutely get ID, but you shouldn't have to vote. Now, you do have to register to vote. And I agree, you do have to identify yourself wherever you register to vote. For me, it's the Department of Motor Vehicles. I registered to vote at the DMV. I established who I was. Simple. Now, if I go vote and say you move or you are moved to another polling station, in New York at least, you have an opportunity to do what's called an affidavit ballot. If they can't find your stuff, if you affirm that you're this person and you live at this address, they have to honor that vote. Now, I believe there should be stiff penalties for people who are not registered or not U.S. citizens that vote. I believe there should be corresponding stiff penalties. But I do not believe that you should deny people the right to vote, which is a constitutional right. Now, that being said, there is a great deal of cheating in politics. We know that. That's not common. And it's not new. It is common, I'm sorry, and it's not new. Jack Kennedy's dad said, in words, basically, I bought the election for my son. With the money I spent, I could have elected his chauffeur. And all reports indicate that he bought it in Illinois, okay? And so, listen, this is just a fact. And Democrats have gone too far in New York. They passed a bill, actually, to say that non-citizens, all residents of New York City could vote. And that's absurd. And quite honestly, the attitude that Democrats have shown toward voter integrity would cause Republicans to realize that if they don't enforce some clarity on who votes, they will never get elected. And so I am sympathetic to that position because if you're going to play a game, there has to be clear rules. And in our political system, only citizens can vote. I can't go to Jamaica and vote today. I can't go to Canada and vote. If I'm in France there, I have a visa to be there, I can't vote. So why is it racist or xenophobic to want to ensure that only if they've gone too far? Yeah, I live in LA. Yeah, and probably done the same thing. And so that's why you have this conversation about voter ID. And I just wanted to come on tonight because I do not believe that a U.S. citizen should be required to show ID to vote. What if your driver's license is suspended? Or what if your driver's license has expired? I hear the Republicans say, well, in every aspect of society today, people have to show ID. True. If they get on a plane, they have to show ID. If they go in a government building, they have to show ID. Yes, but there's no constitutional right to take a flight. The Constitution doesn't enumerate that every citizen has the right to go in a government building or fly. You can't take away the constitutional right. You can if the states see, and see, this is why when people got mad at the decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, see, and you have to be consistent. If you know the law, if you understand our political system, our legal system. People got upset when Roe v. Wade was overturned simply because there was no there's no constitutional right to an abortion, and so therefore it could not be a constitutional right. So it was bad case law. It had to be overturned. That doesn't mean that if 2/3 of the Congress votes for it, it can't be a constitutional amendment. Or it doesn't mean that the states, which is what they did, states like New York voted to strengthen a woman's right or create even more access to abortion. In a state like Mississippi and Missouri voted to mitigate access to abortion. And so that's when it's not enumerated. Remember this, it's very important. When it's not clearly enumerated in the Constitution, it's not a constitutional right, and it has to be thrown back to the states. And so all of these people up in arms, all these people saying it's racism, all these people with this same old cookie cutter response to each and every difficulty black folks face, just stop it, because there are a lot of white people that come election day may not have a valid ID. And I could imagine someone going with a driver's license, but oh, well, my birthday was last week. Oh, yeah, it's no longer valid. Sorry, you can't vote. Well, that's not the way the framers envision being able to limit access to the ballot. If you're a citizen, you should have the right to vote. Once you've established that you're a citizen and you've registered to vote, you should be able to vote. And I stand on that. I think Republicans are wrong on this issue, and I think the Democrats are wrong too. They're right in the final analysis, but they're wrong at how they got there, because the fact remains that there do have to be some controls on our in terms of our electoral process. It's a contest, it's a game, and every contest has to have rules. In the NBA, there's not one set of rules for one side and another set for the other. And this is just common sense. And it's unfortunate we don't have politicians today that, number one, are people of integrity. They just go with their side. And number two, they don't even have the common sense to be able to evaluate these critical issues of the day. And it's a very simple conversation. Republicans will never be able to show how that's a constitutional right, or that a constitutional right can be overturned simply because you say. I hear them on television. I mean, it's ridiculous that a person can't get ID. It's not that hard. Okay, you're right. It isn't. But guess what? A person doesn't lose their constitutional rights just because you don't think it's unreasonable for them to have an ID. Our constitutional rights are not hinged upon what you think or what I think. They are written in stone. And so if the Democrats want to push back against this argument, if they want to win civil libertarians, if they want to win people who are purist in terms of the Constitution, that's the argument that they should make. And they should join the Republicans in saying, we too have a vested interest in making sure that only U.S. citizens can vote. And I think if we could solve the problem, we really, literally could solve the problem if we took that position. And so I just wanted to come on and shed some light on this. I understand the Republicans today voted, and it passed in the House of Representatives that ID would be required to vote. It won't pass in the Senate. There are too many constitutionalists in the Senate. It's not going to pass in the Senate. It's not going to be the law of the land. But it's not because Democrats have made a compelling argument. It's going to be because there are men and women who are of good faith and who understand the Constitution and what constitutional rights are, and they're not going to permit uh, such a sacred, one of the foundational rights of U.S. citizens to be taken away because Republicans believe that a competent person or any person in this modern day should be able to get ID. And if that is the consensus in the Republican Party, they say 80% of Americans agree with their position. They say 75% of blacks, 70% of Asians believe that a person should have to show ID to get the right to vote. If that's so, then you have to. Then that means in our representative government system, you should be able to get 2/3 of our representatives to vote and pass a constitutional amendment, and that's one way of doing it. Then that's a legal process. You have therefore amended the Constitution. But I don't think they'll be able to do that. And I hope they won't, because I would hate for any citizen, white, black. I mean, you can be rich and forget that your passport is expired, or forget that your driver's license, or just not be able to find it on election day, or have lost your wallet, a week earlier, and you're not able to duplicate your ID. So I would hate for any U.S. citizen to lose their right to vote simply on a technicality. And so the framers of the Constitution did not say you had to have an ID. And so I don't believe you should have to after you've registered and established who you are. So push that line, spread this, hit like, subscribe to my channel, but also share this information so that people who claim to be representing you uh, can stop with the woe is me. Black people are an exception. There's always an exception for black people. We can't do anything like anyone else can do. And therefore, the lowest common denominator argument is always the argument to defend us. No, I say take an intelligent argument. Yes, we've made progress. We've gone from slave ships to championships. Yes, we're doing better than we were 20 years ago, 40 years ago. We still face discrimination, and we are still going to fight because we're going to ensure the rights of African Americans. But it's not the same in the United States today in 2026 as it was in 1966 or 1946, 26. And yes, people can get ID, but they don't have to exercise their right to vote. That's it. I'm out. Have a good evening.